writers. I'm talking this afternoon about characterization and how do you make this character, which is usually you, come alive on the page. Because what often happens when we write is we are so busy with putting our story down at some point that we find on a reading, suddenly we're going, I'm not really sure who this person is. So here's some tricks that I've put down, and I'm going to go through my list. And the very first trick is something I've spoken to you quite a lot about, is to be sure that somehow you are creating a physicality for your character on paper. Now, if this character is you, it means, what do you look like? How do you move? What do you talk like? But more than that is, what does it feel like to be in your body? And I've spoken to many of you about the fact that the first time we meet any character, be it you or somebody else in your book, we have to understand what they look like. So it's almost like you pause the narrative and you very clearly and succinctly describe what they look like. Now, the question is how do you do it if it's you? Well, the first thing you can do is you can look down at yourself. So you look down at yourself, you notice that your running shoes are covered in mud. Oh, and then that's a cue to sort of launch into a physical description. The next thing you can do is, if you want to describe yourself, is to look at yourself in the mirror or in a reflection and notice who you are and what you look like. And really, although it feels very awkward, you do have to slow things down here and describe every detail. Your hair, your facial structure, your clothing, your age, what your body really looks like. A third way you can describe yourself on a physical level is to look at an old photo of yourself. So you can look at a photo of yourself, maybe at 17, and then think to yourself, I can't believe how far I've come from that young, fit, alive person, or something like that. So that's just another springboard to allow you to describe to the reader what you are actually like, what your body's like. And let's imagine that the reader bumped into you in a coffee shop. I want them to recognize you, to walk up to you and go, are you that girl? Are you that guy? So that's the level of description. So the one way I'm going to ask you to do this, and I'm still on point 1 of how to write yourself on paper, is I want not just a scene in which you describe yourself. I want you to consider putting in your book a purely physical scene. And that is a scene in which you are not talking, you're not thinking. It's a scene that is basically only body language. So years ago, I used to teach a writing group, and I used to always make all writers describe themselves raiding the fridge at 4 a.m. So think about that kind of scene. And I want you to think of a scene in your book, either it's your hero in a novel or it's yourself in a memoir, that is a physicality scene. What would this character really be doing? So getting into character, what do they do to push themselves? Would it be that they're on a marathon? Would it be that it is something, a horse race? Are they sitting in a sauna? What are they doing that's going to put themselves in a very physical situation? Are they in a fight, a punch-up? And I don't want you to get into thinking or dialogue or anything. It is just the body, what's going on, what are they ripping apart, how are their nails feeling, how's their hair feeling, how are their muscles and sinews moving. And I'm going to read to you, I think it's still the opening line, a description of how one of our writers, Costa Karasavrakis, did this. It's a very good example of just physicality. And this is the opening scene of his memoir, From Myths to Marathons. It's a Sunday night. My mouth has a metallic taste that comes with permanent thirst, stale with a dry yet sticky feel on my tongue. My face and neck muscles are tired and stiff from contracting and contorting my features endlessly. That's what crystal meth does to my face. My eyes open extra wide and then my jaw wider. Then I pull a huge smile to stretch my face. That's stage 1. Then I use my face muscles to pinch my face at the mouth and nose. Stretch, pull, hold ridiculous face, relax, repeat, repeat, repeat endlessly. and then it goes on. So that's an example of a physical scene. We want to be inside your body. We want to taste that sticky bad breath from too many drugs and no hydration. And please find a scene that's very, very particular to your own story or to your character's journey. And maybe consider putting them up under some sort of physical duress during the scene. So it's a very nice way to engage a reader. The next way, from creating the physicality of your character, the next way, point number 2, how do you make yourself come alive? You use interior dialogue. So we have exterior dialogue, which is you talking to somebody else. And very seamlessly in between that, in modern novels and modern stories, we also insert what you are thinking, which can be very, very different to what you're saying and most often is. So be sure when you're going forward in your writing that there's a blend between interior and exterior. And interior dialogue is also self-talk. What are you saying to yourself as lead character? So there's places where you want to blend what you're saying and what you're thinking, and then there are other places where you just want to know what you're actually thinking. And this works very well with both novels and memoirs. And I've just been working on a novel with somebody. When you are having a scene with a lot of dialogue, you do have to temper that with interior dialogue. So often we want to play our story out in dialogue, which is the right way to play stuff out. But to slow things down, we move between two people talking to a breakaway moment where you, as the writer, do two things. You anchor yourself in your physicality. So you may say something very simple like, I put my head in my hands. Okay, so immediately the reader knows it's a pause moment. And then you may want to elaborate with a lot more detail on what you're actually thinking. With my face down, my brain was racing. How could this be happening right now? How could this be the news that I was hearing, or whatever you want to then launch into? So to mix up that exterior dialogue, stop the reader, anchor it in a physicality, a physical movement. So we, again, back in your body, and then elaborate a little bit on what's really going on inside you. Not what you're saying, not the way you're acting, but really what's going on. And that's a way we slow a scene down as well. We race with dialogue. We slow down with interior monologue. We pick up the pace with dialogue. We anchor the reader again in a moment, like pouring a cup of coffee or scalding your lip as you drink it. Because don't forget that books are driven by conflict. So things have to go wrong, even if it's dropping a cup of coffee on your lap. That's a level of conflict because it creates a problem for you or for your lead character. So we've spoken about 2 ways. The third little trick I want to give you is to use a device that I call eavesdropping. Eavesdropping is when you allow 2 other people to talk about you and you are listening. So now this is quite technical because in a memoir, everything is filtered through you, through your eyes as author. So you have to find ways to allow your personality to come onto the page that you're not telling the reader who you are. So eavesdropping is perfect. So imagine, setting this scene wherever you may be. You may be in the bathroom stall quietly and 2 other people walk into the bathroom. Or you could be creeping down the corridor late at night, listening to your parents talk about you. The point of a scene like this is it's strategic. You want to reveal a part of you that you find distasteful, or that other people may, to your negative side. When we're eavesdropping, it's very seldom we're going to hear people talking about how fantastic we are. It's often when people are talking about us, it's talking about us behind our backs. It doesn't have to be unkind, but often when we overhear people talking about us, it can be something we don't want to hear. So this is your opportunity to highlight a part of you that is unpleasant, stubborn, your personality flaw, something you don't want to look at. So use that as a tip or a trick in your writing to reveal more of yourself. The next tip I want to give you, I'm counting now because I've lost count. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's number 4, is you need to give yourself moods. Because we run the risk when we write about ourselves or any character of being on a bland median range of emotions. So now, when you're crafting either your character or yourself, I want you to devise some of your default moods. What do you do when you're extremely excited? You know, not just mildly excited, like what's your real happy place? Do you run down the road, you go and exercise, you pound it out in a marathon? Do you knock it back with 15 tequilas with your friends in a bar? So find what you or your character does in an elevated mood and make sure you have some scenes in which you don't just tell readers you're happy, you really just show them that you're on the high. And equally, you need scenes where you show your reader that you are furious. So I love a rage scene. All books should have them. A scene where you lose your shit, as we say. So how do you act when you do that? Because fury can be very different for different characters. You can get really cold and quiet and cutting, or you can be very volatile, heart pumping, shouting at people, losing control. So make sure in your book you have a scene where that happens, where we really see you in a angry, furious mode. Because most of the book, we're going to see you in normal zone. So we really want to mark these changes and have a little bit of fun with it, okay? Push yourself a bit. Maybe you don't do an ultra marathon when you're pounding out your rage, but maybe that's something that's a little bit like you and you want to make that your quirk or your habit, okay? Maybe you take a boxing, thing and pound until your fists are bleeding. Find something you do in different moods. And track that behavior. So almost it becomes, this is the difference between showing and telling, is the second your character puts on his running shoes or his boxing gloves, or she grabs a bottle of tequila, it's our cue, and we understand that this is a happy moment, a sad moment, and we know that there's going to be a hell of a hangover the next day, and there's going to be a price to pay. Okay, so I'm going on 10 minutes, 12 minutes, oh goodness, I'm going to wrap up. So the last trick or tip I'm going to give you to reveal yourself to the reader on paper or to your lead character is let another character sum you up. Okay, so everything's going through your eyes or your lead character's eyes. Let somebody else walk up to you and let that other person tell you just what you like. So you can play this out very nicely. You can do it obviously in dialogue. So this is different to the eavesdropping. Eavesdropping is something you don't want to hear. If you allow another character to sum you up, you can let them do it to your face and they can talk directly to you saying, this is your fatal flaw. You behave like this. These are the consequences. When are you going to grow up? So they're in that instance revealing a lot about you that it's difficult for you to reveal to a reader. So welcome all of you who have just joined, because I'm keeping it under 15 minutes. I've been through 6 very good ways to unpack yourself and reveal yourself on paper. I've given you different scenes you can actually put into your book. So please rewatch when you have time, and we'll see you all on the Facebook group. End.